Barbie and Oppenheimer are here.
And today we're going to be mashing them together.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
There aren't words to describe it.
So both of these highly anticipated movies are being released today on the same day. And the internet has kind of gone absolutely crazy. Oh my God. They've like desaturated Barbie land, so it's like grayer.
I can't tell which movie that landscape is from.
It's funny that they're both like set in a desert as
Yeah.
well. It's actually really eerie how like
It's fantastic.
creepy they can make Barbie and they just change the music.
The mood manipulation is so good.
This could so be an Oppenheimer. It's perfect. I love it.
This needs to be an actual movie.
Let's just make more of that. So I think the thing that is most funny about these two films being mashed together is that they are so aesthetically different. Everything is pink. It is hyper feminine. You've got Ryan Gosling, who's like looking really sexy. So compare that to Oppenheimer. It's very dark and moody and manly, and it's just a film of like grouchy old men like talking about war and stuff.
I like that. Sounds like a lot of people are going to be watching both.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because despite the obvious stylistic differences, there are an interesting number of similarities. Like case in point, like the desert scene in that combined trailer, you can't even tell which movie that's out of.
Because they're both kind of like historical movies, right? They're both very like nostalgic, and they look into like the history of Barbie and the history of Oppenheimer.
Never would have thought you'd call nuclear bombs nostalgic. But So let's dive into our mashups, and we'll talk you through our analytical process as we go.
So the most important thing for portraying mood for these characters is going to be their expressions and their poses. So I knew I wanted to convey how they're feeling based on their body language. So I started with Oppenheimer and kind of just tried to make him look really sad and depressed. Every still image I've seen of Cillian Murphy, he just looks really sad.
And it's pronounced Killian.
I decided to lower his head a little bit, cast his eyes downward, lower his eyelids so he looks a bit tired and a bit sad and a bit longing. And also making sure that his posture is quite hunched and that his arms are close to the body, as if he's kind of maybe a bit scared or a bit injured.
I think he looks troubled.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Why did you go with that face for Einstein?
So to begin with, I started to draw him with the same sort of moodiness that I gave Oppenheimer. But then I remembered that that famous photo of Einstein with his tongue sticking out. And I thought it would be quite funny to put him in that pose, kind of as if he's like a pet dog who's like,
Oh no.
he's like sticking his head out the window of the car and he's got his tongue out. And with a few other subtle details, like having his eyes really wide and his eyebrows really high, giving him some eyebrow wrinkles. They kind of made him look kind of surprised, but also a little bit silly.
Oh, he's definitely silly.
So my idea for this artwork is that these two characters from Oppenheimer have basically been like plonked into Barbie land. So they still like have the same backstory and the same moodiness, but they're just surrounded by all this like pink and color and happiness.
I would have Oppenheimer's face if I had to wear a pink suit and drive a pink car like that.
So I kind of took inspiration from that still in the Barbie trailer where Barbie and Ken are driving away from Barbie land.
After they've nuked it.
Yes, absolutely.
How did you manage your colors? Because obviously Barbie's very pink, and how do you not let that get too overwhelming?
Yeah, so I think one of the like signature elements of Barbie the movie is that everything is super saturated and super colorful. Obviously there's going to be a lot of pink because it's Barbie, but also making sure that I've got some really bright blues and some nice pastel beiges in there as well. You'll notice that I used like multiple different shades in the car and in the characters. So even their white shirts and Einstein's white hair still has a little bit of pink to it.
I noticed you made their suits the darkest thing on the entire canvas.
Yeah, and that's sort of to help with the silhouette because they are in the foreground and I want to separate them from the background. So I made sure that they were the darkest things in the composition. So after some finishing touches, I used the sparkle brush from Jazz's brush pack and a bit of spatter and making sure that the rainbow was looking all right and that we had some nice God rays cast down on the characters. That was it for me. I'm happy to call this done, and I had such a blast with this one. Speaking of brushes, today we're using Jazz's Ultimate Digital Brush Pack, which is a collection of 83 incredible brushes. They are all fully compatible with Adobe Photoshop, Procreate, and Clip Studio Paint, so whatever your program, these brushes are right for you. We've got debris brushes and smoke brushes, everything that you need to make your own Oppenheimer bomb in...
I've been playing around with a lot of the brushes, but I think for this piece, I'm going to try the lasso tool together with the charcoal hard edge, and I find that's going to help me throw down a lot of the shapes and values really quick and get some texture in from the get-go.
A charcoal brush is quite suited to Oppenheimer as well, because it does have that little bit of grit and texture to it.
It's gritty.
So good choice.
Yeah. Let's get to it. I did the opposite of yours. I've got Barbie and Ken in the setting of gloomy Oppenheimer. It was really interesting to break down the different elements of any piece, and I actually wrote a chart and decided I'm going to take like this from Barbie and that from Oppenheimer and some from both. So here we've got characters from Barbie, clearly. We've got the subject matter of a nuke being set off. That's obviously from Oppenheimer. Now the color, lighting, and mood, those were up for grabs. So I decided that overall it was going to be a more gloomy, desaturated piece in contrast to yours. I decided I would use orange in the lighter tones and a bit more green grays in the darks. But Barbie and Ken themselves still had to be wearing like their signature outfits. It looks highly saturated compared to the background, but compared to like your pinks, mine are like really washed out. I chose to include props and details from both worlds. So like you've got that classic like Barbie glittery star right behind the detonation button.
It's very like graphic and like it feels like a comic book or something.
Exactly, it's meant to feel super out of place. And Ken, there's this screenshot of him where he's like carrying a surfboard, and I thought, all right, well, I want him leaning on something like that, but a surfboard's gonna look out of place in the desert. So what can he lean on? So that's where the nuke came in. Poses and expressions, I decided to keep those Barbie style. What I love about Margot Robbie, and she is such a good Barbie because she's so overly expressive. Like she does that huge smile so well. So I wanted to like make this Barbie like super ditzy and just like capture the energy that Margot Robbie brings to the character.
I think it's actually quite intentional that they like widen their eyes and they make their smile super over exaggerated, because it kind of gives that plastic kind of feel that the Barbie doll has.
Yeah, and speaking of like a plastic feel, I tried to strike the pose that this Barbie is doing, and it's really difficult to bend your joints to that extreme. But again, that adds to that plasticky feel, because that's what dolls, that's what you do with them.
Yeah, especially with that gigantic heel, like, oh my God.
Oh, like, yeah, my feet were in pain just drawing those.
I like how, like, even if you ignore the gigantic smile that she's got on her face, just the pose itself is like so happy and like bouncy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was trying to like maximize the bimboticness of it. Ken as well. He needed this like slouchy confidence, and originally I had both hands in his pockets, but that just felt too disengaged from the rest of the piece. Someone in the studio commented that they like how he's so chill about this nuke going off in the background. But I decided his pose just needed that something to make him really pop. And then it hit me, like he's got his hand in his hair and he's like more absorbed with his looks and his pose than a nuke going off.
He's just along for the ride, you know, like he's not the main character, he's just letting Barbie do her thing.
He's here for the photo op.
Yeah, exactly. He's there for moral support. I appreciate the unbuttoned shirt as well. It's very like, I feel like that's exactly what Greta Gerwig would have done.
Yes. What I struggled with was the overall tonal composition, because both Barbie and Oppenheimer movies are high contrast, but Oppenheimer is like 70% in the shadows with pops of really bright light and explosions, whereas Barbie's the other way around. It's like 90% overexposed and like a little bit of really darks. So I was struggling where to find that balance with this piece. A lot of it was trial and error. Just by starting this piece in grayscale, it it allowed me to not get distracted by color and detail and just trying to make it read well from a distance with all those tones and like so many overlapping elements.
That's kind of the thing about Oppenheimer, is that you don't even need to add color for it to look
Yeah, I love that.
like Oppenheimer.
Yeah, I would have loved to do a completely grayscale monotone piece, but Barbie and Ken are not Barbie and Ken without their pops of color.
Is this like really moody style? Is that what you prefer, or would you prefer like a more colorful Barbie style?
I think in life generally, I'm on the darker, moodier side.
Yeah.
I actually did the background of this first because it was darker. I got to draw like a mushroom cloud.
Yeah, okay.
And it was more painterly. I got to use those dark tones. And then I struggled when I put in the Barbie characters because I'm not used to doing such like a plasticky, happy style. So you got to teach me how to do that on yours.
I think I'm the same. Generally in life, I think I'm more of a like grungier, darker kind of person. Like I came to the studio wearing all black today. I did not expect to be wearing this like bright pink, shiny tracksuit.
I have to say it suits you.
Oh, thank you. But in terms of drawing, I think I had a lot more fun doing this style. It's not my usual way of doing things, but I do like to add like a little bit of extra color to my artworks, so I'm glad I got to do this one today. If you like this video and you want to help support the channel, be sure to check out our Patreon. Our patrons are the people who keep this channel running, and if that's not something that you're interested in, be sure to check out our brushes as well.
In the description. We'll just have them wave to each other.
Okay. Bye. Bye, Barbie. Bye, Barbie. These Barbies are really smelly.